Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to the Cuphead show, episode 6. And yes, I think I forgot to mention in the afterthoughts last time, but yes, we are still keeping to what I had said before. This is the halfway point. This is going to be our determining factor whether we continue the second half of the series or season. I don't know if there's a second season confirmed for this or not. And honestly, it's not looking great. I went into this with notable hopes. I wanted to keep an open mind. A lot of people were not huge on this. It was a very mixed reaction with a lot of people very negative on this series. But I wanted to keep an open mind, keep positive, and hope for the best because it's Cuphead. I enjoy the game. So wouldn't the show be good too? But that was a little naive, I feel, because obviously, I even said this in the first reaction, I believe. I can't just assume. And I want to kind of judge it on its own merits. I'm not going to just make an assumption beforehand and determine whether or not I'm going to like it in that regard. I'm not going to assume just because it's Cuphead, it's going to be the same, because any series that takes from another source, any adaptation, in other words, should change things. It kind of has to. If you have like a manga or a book or something, and light novel, you have to change things in order for it to work as a cartoon or an anime or whatever, or a movie. You have to make changes for it to fit the medium. And so I anticipated that it wouldn't be quite the same. What I didn't anticipate and what I didn't want was most of the series being absolutely boring bullshit. We have reacted to 5 episodes so far. 2 of those episodes were good. The other 3 were not. The 2 good episodes were also the ones that happened to focus, that happened to actually put forth effort and focus into the main story. The first episode, in which everything is set up, and the 5th episode, which is the first time after the first episode that it even acknowledges that the first episode happened. Episodes 2, 3, and 4, while 3 and 4 are not as bad as episode 2, all 3 of those episodes are very weak in comparison. And overall, not that good. And the problem with that is, if most of the series is going to be more episodic, you have to make the episodic stuff entertaining. And I honestly don't think I'm the only one with issues here. With the reaction this series got and how it kind of fizzled out of existence, considering how huge it was before it was coming out, how much attention it was getting, considering the fact that it kind of fizzled out of the public eye, and the negative attention it got when it released, I think it's pretty clear that there were some missteps made. They tried to fit certain styles of the classic cartoons that Cuphead is based on, but ended up losing the charm of them through poor decisions and a lack of creative decisions. I know I just said decisions twice, but deal with it. They had a lack of creativity because every time they do something that's like, oh, this is a classic cartoon trope or whatnot, they don't do anything new with it. Except in episodes 1 through 5 when, the story is a thing. But like episode 2, it's practically cut and paste of any other destructive baby episode of any series. And many shows have done this, and I've seen shows do this better. I don't think I mentioned this in that reaction or since. Let's talk about an example of a series that did this better. My Little Pony. My Little Pony Friendship is Magic did an episode, I believe in season 2, called Baby Cakes. It centers around Pinkie Pie babysitting the Cake Twins, who are not completely newborn at the point. We see the day they're born in the episode, but then it kind of skips forward, I think, a few months or something. They're still very young, still babies, but basically the idea is Pinkie has to babysit them. She's very excited to do so, and they end up being destructive little shits that keep fucking with her, doing crazy things, and eventually get to her. Here's where this is done right. Pinkie Pie is a very great character, already pre-established, to work off of this kind of plot. Cuphead and Mugman were not. They had one episode prior, and it did not establish them as characters that could handle that kind of a plot. In fact, their characters in episode 1 kind of lean towards that plot making no sense for them. It's actually the episode 2, that kind of makes them into the characters needed for that kind of plot, and it just doesn't work. But also, another reason that the Baby Cakes episode works is because the Baby Cakes are not evil. This baby is basically implied to be just an absolute little shit, and intentionally so. The Baby Cakes are just being babies, and when they notice that Pinkie Pie gets upset at what they're doing, they actually show empathy, which, yes, is still fucking weird because baby characters showing the capacity to have that much, like, conscious thought is just fucking weird. But the fact that they show that empathy makes it a little more likable. And by the end, when Pinkie actually does form a connection with them, it's believable and it's likable. In here, they just like yeet the baby off on someone else, and it's like nothing comes of it. As I said, as I've said before, since we reacted to that episode, it wouldn't have been an issue if they said the baby was from the devil, because that would have tied it to the main story, and it would have explained why the baby was such a just horrible little shit, clearly intentionally. But they didn't go that route. Instead, the baby was just some random baby that just happened to be super, like, purposefully horrible for no good reason. The episode also did nothing for the characters. The Baby Cakes episode furthered Pinkie's development, and her growth from it is seen further on in the series when she interacts with the Baby Cakes and even others, such as Princess Flurry Heart. With Cuphead and Mugman, yeah, we've only seen 3 episodes since then, so it's not entirely clear if that's going to be important going forward, or if they're going to have shown that they learned anything from it. But let's be honest, this series isn't doing that kind of shit. I feel like it's pretty obvious that it's not doing that kind of shit. It's not that kind of show. It's not trying to do anything like that. Because here's the thing, even though the 5th episode was also good and focused on the plot, it also didn't acknowledge the 1st episode, really. Like, the only thing it acknowledged was that Cuphead was wanted by the devil. That his soul was wanted. That's it. Cuphead and Mugman didn't acknowledge anything. And the devil only barely did. Honestly, they could have taken out the acknowledgement that the devil wanted Cuphead altogether, and it really wanted to change the core of the episode, which is kind of disappointing, if I'm being honest. But again, the episode was, generally speaking, good and enjoyable. I'm not saying anything against necessarily the whole of the episode for that. What I'm saying here is that the episodic nature of this series is not doing it well. It is not doing an episodic series well. This is a series that I think would actually work better serialized, which is surprising, because you would think, like, oh, a comedic series like based off of Cuphead, it's like, yeah, you would think that would be perfect for more weekly adventures and all, for things that are more episodic. But the problem is, at least from the creators of the series, they don't know how to make it work, because the plots have nothing to do with anything or each other. They're kind of pointless. They don't develop the characters, they don't develop the story, they don't do anything. They're not funny, they're not entertaining, so they fail even at that level. So it's not even just like, oh, a comedic little comedies based series. It doesn't even succeed at just being that. And yeah, I acknowledge all of that is subjective, but I'm speaking from my viewpoint. Keep that in mind. This is just all my viewpoint. If you like this series, if you love this series, no problem with that. But I'm speaking from my viewpoint because I'm the one reacting to them here. So I have to kind of express this from my experience. I'm not enjoying it overall, is the main point. And this is where the issue comes in, because these poll series are supposed to be series that I am more likely to enjoy than other stuff. The stuff I put on the polls, I put on there because I already have a feeling I'm going to enjoy them. And like I said, I went into this with a very positive, hopeful attitude, thinking I would enjoy it. I'm not. So, like I said, even with King Dice and everything last time, even with the devil and actual plot, only in episodes 1 and 5 so far, even with that, I still am going to be keeping with what I said, and halfway point, we'll see how it goes. So this is episode 6. There are 12 in total. This is the proving point for me. At this point, if this episode doesn't impress me, I'm probably dropping this. And I'm saying it has to do more than even just be, a relevant episode to the plot. It has to actually impress me at this point. Because like I said, even with 2 of the 5 episodes we watched already being point or plot relevant, that's still less than 50%, technically. 3 episodes were still irrelevant, pointless, and unfunny and unenjoyable. This needs to impress me. It needs to do something more than just be plot relevant. It needs to be good and plot relevant. But either way, whether I continue on or not, we are going to be putting up the next poll. The reason we're doing it early, if we do continue watching Cuphead show, is because I don't want to wait till the last minute to put up the next polls. I want to get those going, and so then the future show is already known ahead of time, so that when a show does end, a reaction series to a show does end, everybody already knows what they're getting next. That's kind of how I want to run this. So the next poll, which I'll talk about again in the afterthoughts no matter what, will be in the community tab on the channel. It will be in the community tab. It will not be on the Discord or any other social media or anything. It'll be in the community tab. But again, I'll talk about that more afterwards. In the meantime, we're going to get this started, and we are going to hope for the best. I am really hoping that this proves me wrong and does impress me. I want it to. I beg it to. Again, it has to be more than plot relevant, though. It has to actually show signs that things are going to change. It has to show signs that it's going to start taking itself as a series seriously. But we'll see. We'll see. So let's just get this going. Let's hope for the best. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. Almost fumbled on my words there. Let's talk about this. This episode did 2 big things wrong, in my opinion. The first thing is the lesser of the 2 problems, but I still think is a huge missed opportunity, for one. And for 2, it's just like... It makes no sense that they didn't do this, in my opinion. I know from trailer or whatever that Miss Chalice is in here. In the games, Miss Chalice first appears as the legendary Chalice in the mausoleum. You have to rescue her from ghosts. This episode, Cuphead and Mugman are facing ghosts, though mostly just running from them. Would this not have been a perfect opportunity to introduce Miss Chalice, even if just like a small little cameo role close to the end? It didn't have to be like a big role or anything, or a huge thing throughout the entire episode, but just a small little moment. I think that this would have been the perfect opportunity, even if the Miss Chalice in this is more based on the DLC Miss Chalice, in which she's more of her own playable character and everything. It still would have made a lot of sense to at least introduce her to some small degree here, or even at least hint at her coming in the future. Maybe even have something like Cuphead and Mugman. The reason the ghosts go after them is because they stumble upon the Chalice, the legendary Chalice. And then later on in this season, the legendary Chalice returns as Miss Chalice. That could work. Instead, there's absolutely nothing. And it's just a huge missed opportunity, and just feels kind of like a waste, considering they chose to go with a ghost mausoleum episode like this. The second issue is the more important one. The first one was more of just a personal thing. It's like I feel like that would have been a much better decision. It just made too much sense to ignore. The second one is a bigger issue for me. This is a terrible horror episode. I've talked about in the past how I love when a non-horror show suddenly has a horror episode and it's done really well. I've mentioned examples like Powerpuff Girls and Samurai Jack. Shows that are not horror based, but they have 1 or 2 horror episodes in them. that are amazing. Jack in the Haunted House is my favorite episode of Samurai Jack. Abracadaver is one of my favorite episodes of the Powerpuff Girls, as is the episode where the girls accidentally time travel to the future and everything is fucked. Both of those episodes in the Powerpuff Girls are great horror-based episodes, for different reasons, mind you, but still. This is a series that seems to have tried to do the same thing here. A non-horror based series that tried to go horror here. Like, yes, you could say there's some small horror elements in the series. Otherwise, you have the devil taking of souls and stuff. But it's not a horror series, and it's not trying to be. It just has those small elements in there, but they're not represented as horror. This episode is clearly meant to be, even if a comical take on it, a horror representative episode. All this episode does is basically reference other stuff and not even do it well. The spooky, scary skeletons dance in this was just kind of dumb, because it was just a pure ripoff of it. It wasn't even a homage, because it didn't do anything new or do anything creative with it. It just was a clear ripoff. It's just like, oh, we're just gonna put the spooky, scary skeleton dance in here because it's like, oh, people like that, haha, it's a reference to an old cartoon. That's exactly what it felt like. It felt cheap. The ghosts, we've seen basically these exact three ghosts in so many different old cartoons. The dumb ghost who has some kind of brain damage or whatnot, the proper lady ghost, and the wise talking male ghost. It's like, these are tropes, and again, they're not done nothing is done with them in this that makes them anything different than any we've seen before. Nothing else we see in this is creative or entertaining at all. I think that the worst aspect of this series has become clear through this episode for me, though. I don't think it's something I've actually talked about in previous episodes. This isn't just a issue with this episode, it's with the entire series so far. I think the biggest problem is that the writers and creators of this series decided to make Cuphead and Mugman cowardly little shits. Like I said, I understand that they have to make some changes when they adapt anything. Making a series based off a video game, there's going to be changes. I expect changes with the upcoming Last of Us series too. But to change kind of the core of your main characters, you're basically turning them into completely different characters. That's not how you do an adaptation. Even if you've got to change some stuff, you want to keep the core of the series the same. And and changing the characters so drastically is an issue. Cuphead and Mugman in the game are not cowardly little shits. They are not annoying brats, and they are not scared of everything. They fight. They fight to save the souls of everyone else on Inkwell Isle and beyond from the devil. Like, you can still do comedy with that easily. Also, that's another thing that's not in this episode. The entire finger gun things. Or, it's not in this episode, but it's not in this series. Why is it not? Is that something they're working up to? Like, if you don't want to have that in the first episode, fine. Like, okay, but that's something that should be there by the halfway point. Because, again, that's kind of a core piece of the identity of the games. But that wouldn't fit in with who these characters are. Having them fight back against these enemies would make honestly no sense. The only way they ever win or escape is through blind sheer luck in this series. And it's not good. And on top of that, just like even with the lack of creativity and everything, this episode also just wasn't funny again. Honestly, and I hate, this is obviously subjective, and I'm not saying this just to like toot my own horn or anything. I think some of the jokes I was cracking during the reaction were funnier than anything in the episode. And honestly, the jokes I was cracking were dumb. I acknowledge that. They were dumb. But even dumb humor can at least be kind of funny. Bad puns can also be kind of funny. They're dumb, but they're kind of humorous. Nothing in this episode was. And that ending was stupid as hell. They come in, they're covered in like a few leaves and whatnot and some dirt, and Elder Kettle mistakes them for zombies? Like, even if you want to say the zombies exist in this world, or that Elder Kettle is afraid of that kind of thing, like, there's absolutely no way he would make that mistake. There was literally nothing to make him, to believably make him think that they were zombies there. A few leaves and dirt, little bits of dirt isn't going to make him think that they're zombies. There's absolutely nothing to that. It's a terrible joke that just does not work. And then one of the notable jokes they tried to do in this episode was literally a poop joke. Like, poop jokes have never been funny. Like, a lot of kids don't even think poop jokes are funny. There are a lot of kids who do, but a lot of them don't. I never really thought poop jokes were funny, even as a kid. And it's like, that's literally one of the main jokes in this episode. That Mugman only changed his pants 3 times while watching that zombie movie. It's like, do we, what? Why do you think this is funny? What's the joke? It's just dumb. And the funny thing is, when I was saying, like, I was expecting that all the scary stuff was going to happen to Cuphead and Mugman was going to get through the night perfectly fine, that would have actually been a better result than what we got. If that was how this episode went, it would have been stereotypical. I've seen that kind of thing done before, which is why I thought it was going to happen here. But it actually would have been better, and honestly could have possibly even been funnier. But instead, that is kind of thrown out of the window really quickly. And just, yeah. Nothing really comes of anything with this episode. And once again, we have something that has no connection to anything with the story. Nothing in this episode is important. And again, instead of even including the devil or anything in this one, with this one, they should have included something with Miss Chalice, the legendary Chalice. Something about that in here that would have come back into play later would have been great to see. But instead, nothing. They basically have taken another concept from the game, such as when they did with Ribby and Croak, and basically misrepresented it. Kind of misrepresented what it was all about and made it boring. And that's kind of my biggest issue with this series, is that most of these episodes are boring. They don't do anything. And when you have a game that was as widely praised as it was for, being very fun, very entertaining, for having a great aesthetic, great character designs, when you have a game like that, and you just kind of do nothing with it for a series adaptation, it's disappointing. So, yeah, I think I'm okay to say at this point that I'm going to drop this. I just, if you, again, as I said in the pre-thoughts, if you like this series, if you love this series, great. That's awesome. I genuinely mean that. It's like, I hope you do. But I don't. It's clearly maybe just not for me. But I'm not enjoying it. And I can't just make concessions for what is at this point 2 out of 6 episodes being good. That's not a good ratio at all. So I just think it's for the best that at this point that I drop it. We're halfway through, so we didn't get too far into it where it would just be annoying or anything, and we didn't get too few episodes in where it would just be too early. I think it's the right point. I think I gave it enough of a chance. It's just disappointing me. Maybe I'll watch the rest of it on my own time, and maybe if I feel like it deserves it, I'll give like my overall thoughts after I do. But I'm not going to promise that. I don't know if I will. So, yeah. But that kind of leads into the next thing. We're going to move on and go to the next part of the poll and everything. So, since this is obviously the poll series, and no matter what, the past 2 shows are remaining on the poll from last time, the ones that were already on there. So we just have to add something new to it. So let me get my list here, because I actually have it written down. I just have to find it. Okay. So remaining on the poll for this time are Tiger and Bunny, and again, I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce it. I think it's Treese or Trace or something like that. But now we need to add a new 3rd series for the poll to vote on. And so the 3rd series we're going to add for this time around is Hellbound. This is a South Korean, I believe, drama, horror drama, I believe, on Netflix. I've heard a couple very small things about it. I could talk about that in the future, though, but that is going to be the next one on the poll. So the 3 shows, once again, Tiger and Bunny, Hellbound, and Treese. Those are the 3 shows that are currently on the poll. As of this episode being put up of this reaction that you're watching now, the poll will be up in the community tab on the channel. You can go there and vote. It'll be up for a period of time. Basically, whenever the votes stop consistently coming in, or for a notable amount of time, I'll announce the winner via a video. So obviously, I'll make another video announcing the poll and everything. But yeah, so have at it, and let me know what you want to see me react to next. Hellbound is like, I think 6 episodes long too, so I think it's the shortest of the 3 series on there. Because Tiger and Bunny, I think, has multiple seasons, and Treese, I'm not actually sure at all. But either way, I'm good for any of them. They all looked really interesting from the little bit I've seen, and so I have a lot of hopes for them. And yeah, let me know in the poll which one you would like to see me react to. And in the meantime, thank you so much for tuning in. I do apologize if you were enjoying my Cuphead reactions, but I wasn't enjoying making them, and I just feel like this series isn't for me. So I do apologize, but we have to move on. In the meantime, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.